Hello and welcome along to the On the Whistle podcast. I'm your host, Nabbi. Joining me today is a man who is a sight for sore eyes, Francis Nkwain, our Cameroon, our African football expert, the suavest, the smartest of the lot of us here. Francis, I know you're busy moving all around the world, making great things move and shake on the continent, including my favorite night of the year when it comes to events, the Best of Africa Awards in London, where we celebrate African sport achievement, marrying on the field with off the field endeavor. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I know we'll talk more about it, but fantastic to see you. I hope you're well, my brother.
I'm very well, Zayn, and very, very happy to see you. It's great to be here in London with you under the intermittently sunny skies. And
It's a terrible day. There's been about 4 seasons in a day, and we're not
yes,
even
you have
through
to pick your
lunch.
moments to be outdoors.
So, Francis, let's get right into it, my friend.
Let's go.
And before we take a preview look at some of the big games taking place this weekend in FIFA World Cup qualifiers on the continent, I want to start by going to the mailbag because we did a fantastic show last week with Lawrence where we looked ahead to South Africa versus Nigeria, which for obvious reasons is very much in the forefront of my eyes because, if you're a South African fan, you're a Bafana fan, the imposing presence of the Super Eagles. I say this with respect. South Africans, we love to think we're superpowers on the continent. We're not. These guys are when it comes to football. We are a strong nation. We should be respected. But, we got to give credit to the Nigerians. We like to beat them, but they're strong. And Francis, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to hit the mailbag first because we had some really cool responses to our pod last week. We had Sagodi Ramametsa say, Muhu Nkota is going to finish Nigeria. I think we have better wingers who can finish now, unlike Mokoena and Tau, who wasted so many chances against Nigeria. We had Charlie Dlamini, 1671, say, for me, it's Sedebele is going to leave them in the dust. So as you can see, Francis, the South Africans are very, very confident. And then we had Art Fiction Music who said, I think Alex Iwobi is a dangerous player. And obviously, Osman is deadly and on form. They have good quality, but lack the chemistry to make them formidable. I do think that matchday 7 is going to be crucial for the entire group. And that is exactly what we're going to get into today. And Francis, I hope you don't mind. Said that 3 times now. But we're going to start with the Super Eagles versus Bafana, the boys. For me, I don't often say this, but I have a real confidence in the way Bafana are playing, the consistency Hugo Bruce has brought over the last few years with South Africa, particularly playing at home in the Free State. They'll be playing Lesotho and playing Nigeria. So hopefully a nice tune-up with Lesotho before they go into the Nigeria game. They're currently topping their table. Of course, we know there might potentially be a points deduction. Might not be, depending on what happens and what FIFA decide. But it's taken me a while to say this, but I think South Africa is in a good space. And if they can win both their games, I think I don't want to say safe to assure that they'll be going to North America and Central America for the World Cup, but they'll be in the pound seat. And psychologically, Francis, I think this is going to take us to a new level because now we are used to competing and beating the superpower that is Nigeria. Obviously, I'm invested. I want Bafana to win. While respecting Nigeria, you don't have a horse in this race. How do you and other African football fans look at this rivalry and look at games between these two countries?
Well, I think it's safe to say you're in good company if we go by the mailbag in terms of the spirit that you bring to the conversation. But I do have a horse in the course.
Well, here we
Uh,
go.
because we want Africa's best to be at the World Cup. We will have 9 ambassadors, potentially 10 ambassadors for our continent. And to that effect, it is a shame that it's a toss up between South Africa and Nigeria, to be brutally honest. And I
Mm,
think it would be even more significant if Nigeria did not qualify for a second World Cup back to back. And this is what you're actually up against. And I think it's self inflicted, to be brutally honest, because in the
mm,
games played so far, I think Nigeria has four draws and a win, whilst you guys have four wins and a draw. Each
Hmm.
person has lost a game, yes, but I mean, significantly, they have lost games they were supposed to have won. Now, if I am wearing my Africa hat, I think talent for talent, pound for pound, Nigeria is a superior team to South Africa. But spirit for spirit, team play for team play, South Africa is exactly what every national team wants their team to be.
Hmm.
They are a unit. They're moving in the same direction. They have good leadership in Hugo Bruce, who used to be Cameroon's coach and won the AFCON for Cameroon, so we're very familiar with his talents. Um, so you have a very beautiful, fluid, and predictable structure. And in international football, unfortunately, you do need these things, which is exactly what Nigeria is lacking at the moment. So they have the talent, they have the desire, um, but uh, at present, I think they find it very difficult to get the results, particularly at home, where I think they have the challenges around facilities, they have challenges around organization, but most importantly, they also almost have an overabundance of talent where they're struggling with who gets in and who doesn't get in, what system to play, how to accommodate the various
I mean, who
superstars.
wouldn't want Osimhen, Lookman, Iwobi? I mean, these, like you say, I
Yes,
mean, it's, any
it's
country.
an almost overabundance, and I think that has been at the heart of their problems. But I have to say, I think it's really really sad if Nigeria or South Africa don't make it. But at present, I think the first focus has to be on the first games. Um, you have to get past Lesotho, who are playing their home game away on your home turf. That's interesting enough, but that's because, well, they are kind of like a part of South Africa already. So everybody's at home.
The border's very close for him.
It's all around them. It's kind of close.
I've been through that border. It's you just drive across and you're in Bloemfontein.
That's right. And then Nigeria, for example, have Rwanda to contend with, but they
And
have
Rwanda,
Rwanda at
no
home.
mugs. They've been so impressive, Francis.
Yes, but Rwanda has been the only victories Nigeria has had at present. They beat Rwanda in
Hmm.
Rwanda. But again, like I say, the challenge they have is really how they perform at home. So the pressure of their home crowd, the challenge of the facilities, again, locally, has proven to be a challenge overall for Nigeria. But it would be important to see them get past these first huddles, that is both South Africa and Nigeria, for us then to arrive at this unbelievable game that will be South Africa v Nigeria in South Africa. A game that I think South Africa do not have to go for the jugular. That's the honest truth. There is a danger in playing safe, but I think playing smart is very important. The ability to not play for a draw, but to know that a draw is more than enough for them to have secured their ticket to the North American World Cup next year, but also begin to test formations and styles and all these other really important things that come into play with the AFCON, which is also just a matter of months away. This is the double hat that all the managers are actually wearing at present. They're playing these qualifiers, but they're also using them as preparatory games for
Mm,
a tournament that starts in December, and in which they everybody hopes to do well. Nigeria were finalists at the very last one, but I think their greatest fear now is if they don't qualify for a second World Cup, what that means for
yes,
Nigerian football. And I
yes,
don't think going to Morocco to win the AFCON will cut it, but it might help to soothe.
yes.
But we would want to begin to look at the playoffs, which will be in November. So then you start looking at who gets to be a good second. At present, Nigeria is very, very far off that list.
Mm,
I think Rwanda in your group, who are actually second in your group, are the bottom of the best seconds at present.
mm,
So it's a way to go out of the nine to get this top four, who then will battle out for fourth place. But my hope therefore, is that because I'm speaking with a South African, that the Nigerians win, they get the points that they need, but you also then go on to win your Lesotho game before, so you're actually kind of like safe. And then they can get into a decent position with being one of the top seconds, and then make the qualifiers through that way.
Yeah.
Well, a World Cup without Nigeria will be kind of sad.
I'm going to say two things because one, South Africa never does Nigeria any favors. So we ain't gonna give them some points.
So does that mean you're going to lose to Lesotho so they can be guaranteed the second place?
We can't. We've already lost our biggest economy to them, so we can't give them football now, Francis. But
Okay.
what I will say to you is the 1994 US Olympics is one of my seminal memories because of that Nigerian team that got knocked out by Italy, if I remember
Yes.
correctly. And they were so close, man, before that went to
Yakini,
extra time. And I sat with my
Neche.
parents in South Africa watching it late at night because of the time difference. And we were all, I just remember all of us in that room were African.
Yes.
We weren't South African. We went wherever we were African, all behind that Nigerian team. And then I remember Atlanta '96, and I think Nigeria in the US, and there's an expat population there that is connected in many ways that a lot of African countries are not. They've got a really big Nigerian expat population and people who are generationally connected to this. So not to have them in the US would be really sad.
Yeah.
And let's face it, and I've said this before, I love Bafana, but we've never had the icons of, Kanu, Mikhail John Obi,
JJ
even before
Okocha,
that. Sorry, say again.
Yakini, JJ
Yakini,
Okocha, Yakini,
Babayaro. Like there's so
Rofai,
many Osman right now.
yes,
There's so
Taribo
many.
West,
Yes, the names are endless, right? They've had
yes.
recognizable names that have been successful for club and country. And by club, I obviously mean the biggest clubs in the world. So to have them not there would be a pity, but we ain't gonna do them any favors.
Okay,
Because now
understood.
we are South Africa.
There you go.
Francis, we're moving on. I think you've given fantastic analysis there. Um, those out there who would be wondering about the Indomitable Lions, well, they are lagging behind Cabo Verde in Group D. Should we be surprised to see the Blue Sharks leading the way in that group, Francis?
Not necessarily. Capo Verde are a good team. There's a point difference between the two of us. So I guess it's a question of the games against each other. We were successful in the game against them in Cameroon. I think that was our coach's first game. You know, this qualification has been so stretched out. I think uh, we were last talking about these games
I mean,
in
since 2023.
2023. Yeah. So even trying to remember where we are picking up, because in between we came and did all AFCON stuff and then we've gone back to it. So yes, I think if I hope my memory serves me right, but I think that was our first game with our new coach or our current coach was against Capo Verde, I think. Anyway, playing them at home comes after the more important games. So again, I think it's a real focus on the games we're playing today. We have to get past East Watini, so maybe South Africa could have done something for us. and
all the
and
southern, all the southern hemisphere
yes,
nations,
the
Southern African,
relations
sorry, nations.
are strong. Yes. So yes, that is like the main decider. I would like to believe.
Mm.
Um, our coach doesn't travel well in terms of victories. We may not lose games. He is undefeated, but it has been my observation through our recent history that we have not traveled with 3 points very often. So he tends to play quite safe and steady football that works on home turf. Winning in Yaoundé is almost normal. We are undefeated at this stadium for over 50
Mhm.
years. So sometimes when people talk about the statistics and they say, oh, the stats show he's been very successful, but our wins have come at home. So going to Praia will be really, really challenging. But I want to believe the lads can do it. And if they do, then we'll be in contention because a World Cup again without Nigeria or without Cameroon.
No, we need Cameroon.
Uh,
We need
so
Cameroon. Come
again,
on.
there's a part of me. I think we do have a very blessed generation of talent.
I wonder if again, no one would probably go with this idea, but maybe we give the North Africans an X amount of qualifying positions, and maybe we give the Sub-Saharans X amount,
No, I just
or maybe we
I
move
think
the
it's
North
competitive
Africans
enough.
into the AFC. I don't know. Some of them go there,
No,
and
so
then
you're
it's a
talking
win
about.
for Africa because we
Uh,
get more space.
no, I think Morocco, for example. I mean, they need one win to already
Yeah,
be in
they're
the
they're they're
tournament.
clear. They're clear ahead in
Yes.
their group.
Egypt, I think another
Yeah,
win for Egypt, and they
yeah,
also through. They're competing with Burkina Faso.
that's correct.
Um, but then I don't know. You've got other teams in the north that will still be facing some challenge. Tunisia putting in some work.
Algeria,
Algeria,
Algeria and Mozambique.
yes. So I mean, there's some interesting. Uh, it's an interesting idea, but I think we are a unified Africa. What we should be saying is we want more spaces. If Europe, with its 52 nations, can have 16 representatives, then with our 54, having nine for the first time, whilst it's progress, maybe
Potentially
what we
10.
want to be saying is,
Was it?
why? Well, it'll only be 10 if we then
Yes,
have this extra place and we do the playoff and
yes.
we do an intercontinental playoff. But for 54 countries to traditionally only send three or five representatives, and now we want to be ecstatic that we have nine. It's cool, but I think there should be a proportionality appended to how the nations turn up. Again, like I say, if Europe with its 52 nations can have 16 representatives, I think football would be better served. Because North America, for example, I was going to say all three of them, but that's wrong. The three North American nations are hosts and automatically qualify. That's
Yes.
Canada, the USA, and Mexico. Now, that's a vast chunk of that continent eradicated for, and they're all present. It's not our fault that they only have those three big nations, but they're all there. The other Central American nations are still adding up some more nations that will be joining it. But it's a fascinating debate, I think.
Absolutely, Francis. And there's a lot more games going on out there. We've chosen to obviously hone in on these two. I mean, for those African aficionados like ourselves, any other highlights you want to hit before we talk a little bit of Premier League?
Well, one of the games I'm really looking forward to is the game in Kinshasa between Senegal and DRC. Now, again, I
Mm,
mean, imagine a World Cup with no Senegal. I can imagine a World Cup with Congo because I think currently, man for man, the Congolese are cooking. I mean,
mm.
they have an unbelievable squad of talent playing at the highest level in some of the best
We
leagues
suck.
across the
We
globe.
suck. We suck.
Exactly. I mean, like they have really, really exceptional talent. I think it's a blessed generation, and we forget just how much of a powerhouse Congolese football was
Yeah.
back in the
Yeah.
days. So seeing them there isn't something new. It's where they're meant to be, and that in itself is very, very inspiring. But again, having this either or debate around great nations like this, where we could have a World Cup with no Senegal, no Nigeria, no Cameroon. Whilst it's good for other people to have a go, it should be more inclusive.
And this is why I like the word inclusivity, right? And whether that's expanding to create more seats at the table or taking some of those other places from Europe, which I think is a less controversial idea because, with respect, some of these European countries that are coming don't have the same pull as
Mm,
a Cameroon or a
mm,
Nigeria globally because of the history of those nations and because of the expat populations from those populations that reside around the world, whether that's from francophone or anglophone countries, or, from the continent, or just people who are just football nuts and hipsters who will tune in to watch Cameroon
True.
because they remember the great players, or they
Yes.
remember their parents have told them stories, or they've seen
So
highlights
true.
and clips on social. So
And
I do
we've
think
spoken
FIFA has
about
a
this
duty to
before.
think about what's going to get the most eyeballs,
So true.
and Africa is going to be crucial to that.
I think so. And we've spoken about this before. We have this unique ability to be African. So yes, we'll wear our patriotic jerseys, but the minute our country's out, we're kind of like, because the Nigerians in the diaspora in the USA, in Canada, in Mexico, they will still go to the games to support South Africa, to support Cameroon, to
Mm,
support Capo Verde, to support Morocco, because we have this ability to be African as well as our nation. The
yeah.
Europeans don't necessarily do that. The French guy isn't buying a ticket to go watch England play just because the Europeans are playing the South Americans. It doesn't have the same flavor in this space. I've lived here long enough to understand that they don't wear those multiple hats like that. You're either with their nation or you're not. And
Mm.
sometimes even within the European nations, they take very strong positions about the other. So the English guy is never supporting the German team just because they're
100%.
both European.
But I remember shouting for Ghana, and probably still to this day have real issues with Luis Suarez. I don't think that will ever be.
Exactly.
I'm not even joking, by the way,
Yes, we take
Francis.
it
I
personal.
have a
We take
real
it personal.
enmity, right?
Yes,
That's
yes,
there.
yes. Oh, I understand. I share it with you. Share it with you. So yes, that game in particular is one that I'm really looking forward to watching, because the jeopardy in it is actually
Mm,
quite real. They're really close to each other points wise, and the talent on display alone will be truly phenomenal. But again, both teams have to get past their initial games. I think DRC are playing against South Sudan in
mm.
Juba, I think. Another team, well,
Yeah.
Sudan in that
South
group,
Sudan's
because
a
let me
story
not
on
be
its own, right?
disrespectful. Sudan are really flying in that group.
Yeah,
They
yeah, yeah.
were the leaders, and then the big boys kind of like came up, rose.
I'll find it up for you. You keep talking. I'll get to the game. They're playing Sudan tomorrow, and so Friday, and then they got Congo on Tuesday.
Exactly. So they have the same points as Sudan, and Sudan are ahead of them on goal difference or something like. So the Sudanese are saying, "Well, here's our chance to go for broke and try to get ourselves to a World Cup. It will mean so much for a very very powerful nation, a nation that at the beginning of football in Africa they were the leaders. The
Mm,
Sudanese, they were the team that won. I think our initial Afghans, and they were a powerhouse. But since 1975 or something like that, they haven't risen above the doldrums for 'em. So to see them having this reawakening of the game and home turf, it's beautiful to see. We want to encourage it.
mm,
But then we look at young nations like South Sudan and what it would mean to them. A person like our brother Luol Deng would be absolutely cuckoo if his nation were able to
yeah.
somehow, make it into second, for example, and then be part of this
Mm.
14 playoff. But I think there's a lot of jeopardy all around, and it's very, very exciting for African football to see what will be happening and unfolding over the coming days. So we'll keep our eyes peeled
Absolutely.
and try to take
Yeah.
some amlodipine to keep the heart down.
Wow, it's going to be amazing. If you're South African, we've obviously got Lesotho and Nigeria. In between that, the Springboks play the All Blacks in what will be the biggest rugby game of the year. And we also have our Women's World Cup where South Africa will be playing France. So if you're an African, there are lots to get behind across a multitude of sports. But Francis, I just think it'd be, to use the last sort of 3, 4 minutes or 5 minutes of the pod to talk about some of the African stars in Europe and in the Premier League that might have caught your eye. Obviously, there's obviously it's still early stages, and I don't know if you want to maybe start with who you think from Africa has been starring, or even better or worse, how are your beloved Manchester United gonna dig themselves out of the hole they're currently in. And is it a superstar like Mbeumo who's going to have to be the savior there?
Wow. Um, I don't really know the hole that we're in. It's a new season and it's just begun, and
Is it not the same script from before?
not really, because if
Very calm, very calm. Go on, go
yeah,
on.
no, honestly, I mean, like Man City are having a worse start to the season than we are. Nobody's telling them that they're dead and buried or anything. They didn't win the league last year. Since they won their treble, nobody's really had a pop at City and said, "Oh, you're in a." It's football. It's cyclical, and
But they didn't get knocked out of the League Cup by Grimsby. You did.
yes, we did. And again, it's football. It's a penalty uh, defeat. What was it like? 14-13. Hey, it's not like you had your football handed to you by. It's football, and it's why we love the game, and it's why you have cup competition. Again, like in terms of like speaking about, it's nice to see United bring in players like Mbeumo, to see players like Diallo shining, to see
Hmm.
players like Mazrui at United, even players like Onana. Like just when you look in the league and you realize that we don't even have another goalkeeper of African descent in our league other than Onana. It's one of the reasons why sometimes I find it hard, not as a United guy. I wish him well because I think of all those other young boys who dream of getting this opportunity. And all of a sudden, his example could be used by another club. It already has been in the past for why, oh, the African keeper. And so you kind of like, you look at it and you go, well, it's tough luck, but he's a very confident lad. He will still come and do a job for Cameroon today. I'll still be rooting for him. But we have this new core of African players in our club. But again, I know we will lose them in December and January.
Hmm.
And they play for countries that hopefully will do well in the tournament. Mazrui will stay with Morocco. We'll imagine he'd be staying with them all the way to the final. In the same way, Diallo would think he would stay with Ivory Coast all the way to the finals. In the same way, Onana and Mbeumo or Baliba at Brighton would assume. And so you look at this and you think, ooh, it would be really interesting this year because clubs like Liverpool will be losing
Hmm.
some really, really key players. I think we went through like 2 or 3 seasons where not many clubs were touched by the quality or the character of the players that were leaving.
Hmm.
But I think we're beginning to see a rebirth or reemergence of really top African talent at top European clubs.
Hmm.
And Osimhen away from Galatasaray means a lot to them.
Sure.
If you understand what I mean, and
Of
this is
course.
how it used to be when Vieto's left the Barcelonas to go, but they said, "I'm very proud to go," and so that conversation became something where it wasn't an either or. I take the easy choice, and that's why young boys like Ekitike, for
Hmm.
example, who had the option to come and play for Cameroon, and said, "I'd rather wait for my call with France." And the French didn't call him up with the initial list. And they asked even the Cameroonian coach, "Oh, well, he's not being called up for France. Would you have him?" And he said, "I want players who choose to play for Cameroon as first pick." He got his second dibs with France, and they've called him up now because of injuries, and he'll probably go into that team and shine. But I do think that there is something to be said for this new generation of players who are willing to put their hands up early for their countries or their fatherland or motherland, and they go there and give it their best. But I think the Premier League in particular, clubs like Liverpool will be really exciting to watch because of this African talent. And Ekitike playing alongside an Isaac with Mo Salah, those are three African kings running at people, even with Gakpo, who spent his summer in Ghana. And brothers like Konate sitting in the back, and Frimpong running down the other side makes Liverpool even more appealing to an African audience.
Yeah, 100%.
Not because it's an African team, but because it's great talent. And this talent just happens to have in its DNA an African core. And so watching my team rebuild itself using that same DNA is very exciting to watch. And you look at young Pap Sarr at Spurs, one of the
Mm.
most underrated and amazing talents in the game today.
But someone I don't believe who gets enough props is another one, Kudus.
Yes, yes, kudos. So I was gonna say, like, so you go to Spurs, for example, and you're seeing kudos and Papsar and even Young Tell, and I mean, it's an amazing core again that is rising to the fore. Mwani joining them as well is yet another one of sons of the soil that will be coming into that mix over there. You come to Arsenal and you're seeing Saka and Madueke and Eze and Saliba. Again, this core of brothers, young lads who are extremely proud of their African heritage. They don't shy away from it nonetheless, but they're representing us in different places, in different with different flags, but carrying it proudly. And as you rightly said at the beginning, we hope to celebrate all these boys again at Best of Africa in October, and just say thank you for standing to the test of excellence at its very top echelons and inspiring the young girl who wants to be a doctor or the young boy who wants to be a musician
Mm,
or just to say it's not good enough just to do what you're doing. Try to be the very best, perform and test yourself amongst the very best. And if you rise, let it be based on the talent that you have. And when you do rise, because of your talent, carry the flag of Africa with you and let the world know that we come in different shades, in different colors, from different backgrounds, but we're extremely proud of this Africa that we represent wherever we are.
absolutely. Look, I know we've run out of time on the pod, but someone that I just, look, this could spark another fantastic discussion between us. But I just feel for Onana. I really do, because I remember when him and Ajax before Inter, and there was obviously some drama in between that, um, along with I think of something like Edward Mendy, was showing a path that African goalkeepers could go through. They could be elite, they could be spoken about. And look, this is not to disrespect somebody like Bruce Grobler, who came before in the 80s, or Gary Bailey, you know, Zimbabwean and South African internationals. But let's also not ignore the elephant in the room. With Mendy and Onana, we had two black goalkeepers, which
Yep,
you and I know in the game is something that's been stigmatized, right?
very true.
Um, and to have them really, and was it, geez, the Moroccan Boni?
Yes,
You had like just a new wave of goalkeepers that were at the forefront of the game. Mendy winning a FIFA Best Award for being the
yes,
goalkeeper of the year, I think, in 2021. And I sort of looked and said, wow, the narrative is changing on this.
yeah.
And then when I see the troubles, obviously, Mendy is subsequently playing in Saudi Arabia, so he's not
He
really
opted.
able
He
to.
opted for peace.
Well, yes, and we all
Yeah,
know what Al Ali did at the
mm,
FIFA Club World Cup when they knocked out
exactly.
Man City. And if I'm correct, they got a draw with Real Madrid. Was that right?
They did.
Um, but I look at what happened with Onana and the demonizing all last season. And I'm not saying there weren't gaffes, I'm not saying there weren't mistakes, but look who was in front of him.
Yeah,
This is not Bruce
it's
and Pallister. This
it,
is not Vidic
exactly,
and Ferdinand. Just look
exactly.
who is in front of him, and tell me that it's fair what we're seeing.
Yes, it's for me. It's the adjectives. I'm not the biggest Andre Onana fan in terms of saying like he's this faultless goalkeeper or anything,
No.
but there's a lot that comes with that position, and you need like this tremendous reservoir of confidence to be able to keep dipping in when and these days you can't avoid the noises. Like they come and meet you in your house. Like you
Mm,
take your phone and the adjectives are there, and you put on the television screen and the bloopers are there, and yes, you're the one you're doing them, but to feed on it as the only nutrients that is supposed to keep you going is tough. And so I have a lot of respect for his ability to keep smiling, keep putting himself out there to say, let me go again. And you hope the guys in front of me can help and I
mm,
can maybe also make less mistakes. but I don't think he makes any more mistakes than you would get in another 15 clubs in that same season. But his will be amplified not just only because he's a United,
Yes.
but also because he's this black African boy. I
Uh,
also believe,
hun-
you know.
100%.
And
And I
your
think
connection
United
to the
fans,
Mendy thing is very true because the Chelsea, the way they
yeah,
spoke about him, there were times you'd look at the games and you're thinking, what exactly are you picking on this dude for?
yeah. And if Edward Mendy was an English player, he would never have been sent
Never,
to Saudi Arabia. And that's no
never.
knock on what's going on in Saudi
Yes,
Arabia.
yes,
There's no knock. I'm just
yes.
saying, if he was English, the treatment of that player would have been different. Or if he was playing in Spain and he was Spanish, there'd be a
Very
different
true.
treatment of that. And United fans need to go back in history. I'm grayer than you, Francis, which
Yep.
means there's more wisdom here. There's also more
Yes.
age. But I remember Massimo Taibi in
Yes.
goals for Manchester
Yes.
United,
Very
and
true.
what a shocker he was.
Very
And we
true.
all know Fabian Barthez, for whatever reason, did not work out at United
Oh, we've
either.
had many of those. The list is very long. And so when they talk about like all these guys, goalkeeping is one of those punt jobs. Generationally, you usually end up with like three greats, generationally.
Mm,
So that means in the span of 10 to 12 years, there are three great goalkeepers across world football.
mm,
So at one point in time, all of a sudden, like we speak about it as if at United, you would talk about a goalkeeper. Uh, okay, main man. Why am I forgetting his name?
Peter Schmeichel,
Schmeichel, thank you.
what a
And
ledge.
then yes, then you'd get a Van der Gaal
Yeah, of
or Van
Edward
der Zaal, and
van
you
der
have some
Sar was
people who will say Van
outstanding.
der Sar, Van der Aal, and they're like, okay. And then you say when the young boy came in from Spain, there were two of them.
David de Gea.
Yeah, and he came with another guy at the same time.
Victor Valdez was there for a period.
Valdez, I think it was no, but Valdez even came later. But he came like there were two of them who were bought at the same time. And Alex Ferguson literally would play one guy one game and play the other guy the next game, and play one guy one game and play the other guy the next game. And people said, "Oh, but stability," and he said, "Oh, they're young. I want them to learn," and da 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 da. And there was all of that kind of conversation. But time was afforded to a young man to grow.
Mhm.
And I just feel sometimes like that, okay, this guy might not be your generational superstar keeper. But if your defense is doing its job in front of him, then he won't concede as many. 2 seasons back, he was pretty decent, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like,
Ajax, Inter. Mhm.
yes, but even at United, you know,
Yes.
they ended the first season with the second best defense in the league. The challenge they were talking about was, oh, we can't score goals. And then the very next season, personnel switch up a little bit. They're learning a new system. They concede a lot of goals, and they end worst they've ever done in the history of their club. And we say it's one guy's fault.
Hmm.
And you go, yes, we can't score goals, but there's a whole thing even about how that keeper plays in that system.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll figure it out. But I do feel for them, and I think you're onto something. We should get him to join us one time.
We would love that. We would love
Yes.
that.
So
Francis, thank you for the wisdom. Thank you for the time. There's lots we can look out for. We wish you well, and we can't wait to chop it up after the two games during the qualifiers. And for those of you listening out there, please find us on our social accounts, OTW underscore podcast on X, on Instagram, and on TikTok. Or you can search for the On the Whistle podcast on YouTube and Facebook. Join our communities and talk to us there. And leave a comment, leave a review on any podcast player you get the show on. Wish you well, Francis, and we can't wait to do this again, mate.
thank you so much, Zane.